I'm not sure where to start. There's been so much that has happened so far. I guess I should first say that I've always been sensitive to these kinds of things. Truthfully, I'm hesitant to tell them. It's hard to explain events like this to most people, especially without sounding like I'm absolutely crazy. I sometimes pick up on things that most other people don't seem to notice. It's only ever just a feeling or physical response to a place or a person. To start off, there's a long history of abuse within my family's home. It spans several generations and has caused a lot of really horrible experiences, both paranormal and not paranormal. It wasn't just the house. The entire town held a lot of negative history. It held a very old-fashioned family that had horrid ideals of how women should be treated. I think part of my past, and maybe the overall environment, has allowed me to pick up on subtle changes in the air. What I mean by that is that I pick up on the emotional state around me really easily. You know that feeling you get when someone might be watching you? So you turn around and, yeah, you confirm that they were in fact looking at you. Yeah, it's kind of like that. I could tell when my father came home because of how heavy and oppressive the house felt. I could tell when I needed to hide or stay outside because it would feel like the air was full of electrical pins that would put me on edge. You could tell when he was mad before you saw or even heard him. It was like you were waiting for something to fall and shatter at any second, that nothing good was going to happen. I grew up in an old mining town. It didn't become a ghost town until after the gold rush. I'm not going to give away too many details here, but the big mine, it's still in operation today, while most of the others have closed down. I lived in one of the original buildings from when it was first built within this part of town, a lot of which is within native territory. There were some homes located in my old neighborhood that were confirmed to have been built on top of old burial grounds, and some that were built before there was even an official town. Tuberculosis had been a major factor in some of the demise found back in the day. My family is also part of the original first miners that worked there during its opening and who still live in this town. We have had 5 generations in this home. That was until just recently when it was put on the market by my parents. Though, hopefully, well, at least I hope, it never gets bought. No, honestly, I hope the place burns down to the ground before anyone else gets a chance to live there. I'm horrified at the thought of someone else staying there. If I had money, I would buy it and simply keep it empty forever. Like I mentioned, it's hard to start somewhere, especially with so much going on. I'll start with the very first memory that I have of anything paranormal. That traced back to about when I was 4 years old. To start with, I remember waking up to this woman inside my room. She was singing to me, and I remember this happening every night. She would just keep singing to me. It was in this beautiful language. I had never heard such a language like it before. Unlike what you might expect, this would actually happen during the morning, not in the middle of the night. Her voice, it seemed somehow sad. Like something was wrong. Then for some reason, I got this feeling like I had to follow her. So of course, I did. A side note, all the rooms in my house connected to the open area of my living room and the kitchen. And it was heated by the stove and cooled by the root cellar, which was connected to the kitchen pantry. It was like a giant rectangle separated by a central kitchen directly in the center left of the building, and with the front door being in the bottom left location. So, when we reached the room that contained both my kitchen and the living room, she waved and smiled at me. Her emotion somehow implied that she was about to leave. The thing is, I thought she was real as any other normal person that I'd seen. Yet, I don't remember her actually saying anything to me in a language I'd understand, like English or Spanish, which were the languages that we often spoke in my multi-language home. I just remember her somehow suggesting that she loved me so much, and that she'd always be there for me, especially when bad things would happen. She was always there to sing me to sleep, and was always there whenever I was scared. I remembered that I was so upset one day that I started crying, asking her not to leave. After 30 years, I still remember the look on her face to this very day. She smiled her sad smile, and then turned to the door. Though, instead of just walking out the door, I remember that she walked through the wall where the door used to be, where it was before the additional rooms were added on. For what it's worth, I didn't even know about this fact until later when I was in my 20s. And then, I never saw her again. I never heard her sing again after that last encounter. I still get really sad sometimes when thinking back to that morning. I don't know where she went. I wish I could have known what happened to her. I'm hoping that someday I'll get to see her again. My mother found me after this event while I was still crying. Since even then, I knew it would be bad to tell her the truth of what I saw. So I never told her about what really happened. Honestly, I probably never will. After that day is when all the really bad things started to happen. It all accumulated, little by little. I remember that there was a small hole that had appeared in our home, and slowly things started leaking through. And then there was my uncle who became really sick shortly after this. He ended up passing away in one of the rooms I slept in. You see, we switched rooms every few years. I was still young, but I remember him very clearly when he passed away. It was very traumatic, and unfortunately, it wasn't peaceful. Now, I don't remember everything from that time, but I do remember him coughing up blood and trying to pretend like everything was fine. I remember that I woke up one morning and Grandma had told us that he had passed in the night and was already with the morticians. After this point, a lot of family members and household visitors claimed to have seen him. My grandma was heard on more than one occasion crying and telling him to move on. Telling him that, no, he wasn't supposed to be here. He was supposed to be in heaven. I remember her telling him, "Mijo, you'll make the angels cry if you don't move on." She said this on a regular basis. Maybe a few months after he passed, I moved back into his room. We were very, very poor at this time, so I had no choice but to take the bed he passed away in. It was either that or sleep on the cold floor. The first night after moving back into that room, I remember not being able to sleep because of the creepy, odd shadow in the room. It wouldn't let me sleep. It wasn't supposed to be there. Nothing in the room seemed to give off such a shadow. It was somehow something new that wasn't there before. I was really scared. And no, I know it wasn't my uncle. It was something else. At some point, I did finally fall asleep. But then something suddenly dropped on my bed and woke me up It had to have been from at least a foot or more. Wherever it was from was enough of a height that it bounced more than once on the bed. I quickly opened my eyes and saw this black stuff surrounding me. It wasn't like smoke exactly, but it kind of moved like it. It was just black, like pure blackness, like the absence of light. I remember jumping from the bed, way too scared to do anything, only able to watch it disappear into the center of my mattress. That's when I left to sleep next to my brother in his cot. Over time, I ended up sleeping on the floor in his room after he became too big. I never slept back in that room again after that encounter. From then on, I always felt like this evil darkness was watching me every time I would walk past that room. I can't look into the doorway anymore. It's like when someone is so oppressive that you can't help but look at the floor, not daring or able to even just look up in their eyes. It sometimes felt like it would dare you to look at it. I swear, there were even times that things were sporadically thrown, and it would rush at you, drowning out your hearing with screams. There were many nights where dishes were thrown from the kitchen and into a room. Sometimes they'd be thrown into mine, and sometimes the other kids' rooms. Only Grandma's room and the bathroom were the two that actually had doors. So it soon became a house rule that nothing could be left on the countertops, and all the cupboards had to be locked with their front door latches. You know, the ones that would hook and latch closed and couldn't be opened without a bit of effort. The fridge was also locked for the same reason. We would wake up to milk or other things being thrown into the living rooms or again, into the bedrooms. It got so bad that Grandma had the priest come every weekend. This happened up until she was too old and too sick. At that point, Grandma had to be taken to a nursing facility. Eventually, whatever it was stopped appearing. And Grandma also passed. After she was gone, it was like an explosive sudden burst. Everything just went crazy. Honestly, I'm not a religious person at all, but I felt like that priest was stopping something bad. And now, whatever that evil was, seemed like it had full control once again. There were far more things being broken, vases and cups mostly. When the priest stopped coming, it seemed like there was more traffic from this presence. It was surrounding the cellar and the kitchen pantry. The story's getting long, and there's still so much I've not even touched on. It's hard talking about because none of it seems real, and I know what it sounds like. That's why I've kept it close to my chest for so long. There was a lot that happened. I don't think I'll even ever be able to talk about some of the things because there are just some things you can't even put into words. Everything sounds fake. Even I can tell that. Had there not been so many witnesses in my family that can confirm these events, I wouldn't even believe it was real. Honestly, it would sound too crazy to me. Extra commentary from the narrator. As the author is looking for extra questions and comments, you can view their original story within the link in the description. I urge you to check it out and ask them questions or post if you want to hear more. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video or any of my other videos, leave a comment, let me know. If you want to hear new stories as they come out, go ahead and subscribe. This channel's still small and still new, so it needs your help to be able to grow so that more people can hear these stories. And I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for listening.